What's up, Ray?
Hello, Steven.
Yeah, just what we were talking about. Now you're speaking way past the mic.
I know I'm over here because, like, I use this monitor for lighting, and it was restarting when you started it, and it hasn't turned back on yet, so I had to move over there. I wasn't trying to do this.
We got to get you a light.
We
got to get you a light. I love that you're using a monitor.
Well, it's
you have to start a whole computer just to get your lighting right.
Well, it's the whole combination that I figured out for myself, right? Because I have one of the fancy lights, and it's good directional light, but then I need some that's like right here on me, and then I like my wallpaper. It's pretty much a lazy thing. My wallpaper on this monitor is like this green Star Wars one, so which is why I'm all green right now. But then
like a gamer.
the balance though, when I have like my other computer over here with a white screen, and then this one, it's kind of see, it's too bright now, but it'll even out.
You look amazing. All the listeners, just imagine Ray's face green on one side, blown out white on the other side. It's a good look. Yeah. Now you look like a gamer. Anyway,
I'm a gamer.
How you doing, man?
I don't feel good, but I other than that, I'm fantastic.
Nice. Well,
I don't know why. Speaking of gamer, I played games last night, and that's when I never, if I get the chance to play games, I'm gonna play because everyone else is gonna go to sleep, and I'm gonna stay up all night.
Yeah.
And I had the opportunity last night, and I had to get off. Like, my head hurt so bad. I don't know why. I just had the worst headache, and so I was just like, all right, I gotta go to bed just so I can close my eyes and not look at something right now.
Yeah, everybody's literally telling you dude, let's get some sleep. Come on, bro. Come on. You're not going to do it? You're going to play games? All right, try this on. Yeah. Try a headache.
Totally. My brain is like, fuck you. Fuck you. How about every time you look at a screen, I make your head hurt worse? How about that?
Well, dude, since it's been icy outside, I don't know, man. My brain went into snow day mode. Well, I mean, my son, and your kids too, they're having to stay home from school. But usually, I still it's just all right, well, I mean, we work on the computer, unless the internet's out or whatever, or power's down. It's just like a normal day. But my brain went totally into snow day. So I got up. Well, one, because I don't have to drive Essex to school. I don't get up quite as early. But this morning, I was just I'm just sleeping. And, man, I feel amazing. I'm still kind of waking up a little bit, but I'm doing great.
So this whole thing kind of, I don't know. We've talked about it before. I'm a very worst case scenario thinker, and this the whole snow thing just reminds me of last February, which was the worst February.
Snowpocalypse. Yeah.
No, it was just because I got hospitalized and was so sick and felt so bad.
You almost died.
With the COVID thing, and it's hard because it's we're here in the game room all the time, and I remember being sick, and I'd walk through there, and there's a little door that looks outside, and seeing all the white. And it totally just brings it back of how horrible I felt then. So it's I hate snow. I need to go back to Hawaii where there is no snow. I don't know. I'm not a snow person.
Yeah, that's why you have a house with a heater and shit. You don't actually have to go out in it. You just get to look at it. I mean, it looks nice.
I like going outside though.
Yeah, but it's not like you go outside that often. It's one day not outside. Ray's regular routine is ruined.
I do go outside. I just don't do anything crazy. We'll walk the dogs and we go do things, but even the dogs are hell no, I'm not going out there. They run back inside. But anyway,
well, my dog
depressingness.
Great, dude. Well, hey, let's bring that shit back up. That's what this show's for, getting Ray hyped.
I'm just drinking. Yeah, I just need some of my coffee to work, which I'm drinking out of my Mandalorian cup.
That's cool. I've been watching the Boba Fett show,
Nice.
series. It's legit.
I'm uber nerd, so I watch it twice, once with the family, once without the family, and then I watch all of the Easter egg things on YouTube where they break down every episode and every Easter egg of the characters and the things that are in the background.
I'm not at your level of nerd, but I'm into that shit. I like when you, you get the commentary from a real nerd, maybe yourself. That's did you notice this? And they'll, I usually don't go back and watch it because they'll show the clips or whatever, but that's always cool because those guys, and the thing that amazed me, I won't say the most, but I was like just very surprised by was Jon Favreau is the one writing all that shit. And like when I first saw that, well, I know now because I've kind of got up to speed on his level of nerd, but I remember him from that that first Vince Vaughn movie. I mean, I know he's been in a lot of shit. Swingers, yeah, Swingers. And then, of course, he was in, the movie Chef or The Chef or Chef or whatever it was, which I thought was really great. I really like him a lot. He's super talented. I just did not expect him to be like the, head writer, producer, whatever of Star Wars.
He directed all the Iron Mans and stuff too, right? I
know now. Well, I guess I kind of knew that back then. And I just really like, you hear you hear like a factoid or whatever, and it just doesn't matter that much.
I feel like if you pull off a Star Wars movie though, like, because I feel like Marvel and things sometimes get a pass or whatever, right? But like Star Wars or Star Trek, the fandom is so crazy. Yeah. If you fuck it up, like you are like banned forever, right? And the fact that like they take into account, J.J. Abrams does this really well too, even back in the day with Lost. It's like they take into account every detail of every story that's ever been told, of every comic that's ever been written, of every cartoon that was ever made. Like they immerse themselves in that universe. Like it's crazy. I can't imagine the amount of work that they have to do to like make sure they cover all their bases with just like the background.
Right. I love it, man. I love it because it all ties together. And then like, even if you don't catch something immediately, like it could be the next movie, or you just end up like, like you said, they'll tie everything together. And so I'll watch a little thing like a cartoon version with Essex, and it still ties into the same story or the same characters or this like little detail. It's pretty cool. Have you ever put like Easter eggs in any of your products or websites or anything?
Back at Shop Savvy, we did a thing where if you like press this button 3 times, it just started breathing like Darth Vader. And we told no one about it. Like it was totally like we talked about Conlon before back in the day, because he was the iOS developer, and we would just be like, well, let's do something dumb. And then like, he's that guy, he would just do it. Yeah. And so that's the one that stands out to me. I mean, like, I always hide random things back in the day when I was a kid, like in Photoshop, because I read the story about Disney and how there's like dicks and like all the, and all the cartoons from the 30s and stuff. And so I'd be like, oh, I want to do that. I want to hide
Those are pretty funny too when you get like a screenshot that's like, look at this, and you're like, is that real? Like, because that's clearly a dick.
No, I mean, but I don't know. I feel like that means people have a personality and a sense of humor, and like,
totally, it does remind you that like it's just us, like it's just other people that are like, yo guys. But it makes you wonder like how far up the chain it goes. Like, did somebody end up getting fired? Or
well, these days for sure, because you have to mix both.
Well,
but anyway, hold on, I always ask something before you change on that.
Well, okay, let me finish real quick.
No, sorry.
We used to. I love Easter eggs, and I used to try to put them in every website. And so I've done a few where like, if you stretch the website out extra wide, there's like a little button over there, and you can push it, and it takes you to a little like really stupid. I mean, you don't want to spend too much time like build a whole nother site, but it's just like some stupid crap or whatever. I've done a lot of like 404. Like those aren't really Easter eggs, I guess, but it's like you'll never see it unless you accidentally go to the wrong page. But back in the day when John Broom and I used to work for TG, the hair care products, we would do these advertisements, and we were still having to, it wasn't digital printing. So, you would end up getting like the 4 different color proof sheets or whatever. And they would send back these proofs or whatever. And anyway, so that was back when Shepard Fairey was first, like, I don't know if it was when he was first blowing up, but it was still like Obey Giant was hot. Mm-hmm. And so John sneaks in like a big Obey Giant into the advertisement. And we were like, hey, cool. We'll tell everybody about this. Because, I mean, it's kind of cool, right? It's a national magazine. Everybody has the ability to see it because it was in all these popular magazines on all newsstands. And so we could be like, hey, guys, check this out. Well, the proof comes back, And I guess because he probably just did it in black. I don't remember exactly why, but when the proof comes back, there's one proof that just straight up like an Obey Giant sticker, and it was just so obvious. And you know, it was in his department. Like, I was down for him doing it. He was obviously going to take the shit, but we were both kind of shitting our pants. It was like, oh my God, because somebody else had to approve the proofs. The good things that the people I don't know how much they would have cared. They would have wondered because it was just way too obvious. They would know, what is this? But those people didn't give a shit. They would just look, and if anything just was like actually, yeah, totally. They just signed it. If anything actually got fucked up, they would just blame us. Yeah. So anyway, nobody noticed. Live? It went live. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, and so we did get to like, you know, he ripped that one out, and you know, it was in like whatever. Bunch of just standard magazines, like I don't know, maybe like mostly like Cosmo, Cosmo.
That's awesome.
Cosmopolitan. Yeah, it was kind of cool. But
that's super
anyway, what were you going to ask me?
Oh no, I was going to ask you. It's totally jumping back the other thing we were talking about around like Boba Fett and Mandalorian and stuff. Do you know how they make it? Have you seen like the making of?
No.
Because it ties back to me playing video games. Okay, so Epic Games, who makes Fortnite. Right.
Okay.
The engine, like their platform that they created, is called Unreal Engine.
Yeah, I've heard of this.
And so it's like a whole mapping system to where it's like you can create maps and worlds and whatever, right? And so what they do for Mandalorian and for Star Wars and probably every movie of the future now is they've created a room that's like a 360 circle of screens. And that screen, literally, they play the Unreal Engine. So, like, when they're in Tatooine or whatever, they literally go, they press the button on the Unreal Engine, now you're in that land. And they're literally walking through the middle of it, and they can see it, like, for real. Where before, when you used to make a movie, you're just staring at a bunch of green screens. Yeah, you got to pretend you're in that place. Now they can actually, the actors can see it. So, like, now it's like, it almost like, the hope is, like, the acting is going to get even better because they're feeling it, and they're there, and they're in it. But the beauty is, like, the cost of making the thing actually goes down because you don't need to make all these sets. You just press the button and change it. And like now, like the engine just changes it to this other planet or to space or to whatever. And you're like in it. Right. I was like super like literally like I heard a story about that and I was like, okay, can I buy Epic Games stock? I was seriously like, this is going to be the future. Not even just for Fortnite. But it's pretty
so what
sweet.
do they use? Where they have like treadmills and shit that they walk on so they can walk forward, stuff like that.
Stuff like that, yeah. It's totally like, think of like, you know, like in the 80s and stuff when they'd make like a hacker movie and someone would be wearing like a VR set and they'd be like in some like Running Man kind of like crazy get up. Like imagine that, but someone spent like $1 billion on it, and so it's like this ultimate room of like being able to change and move anything, and like that's like their set. You know, and so
which I guess you said it was like cheaper than building the sets. Probably not up front, but in the long term, it probably starts to pay off.
I mean, maybe. I mean, I'm sure there's deals with like the partnership with Epic and like the amount of development work and like the amount of 3D.
Oh yeah, they're probably making an investment to be a part of this.
You know, there's obviously cost there, but I mean, every time you needed to go somewhere to another planet, you'd have to make another set and you'd have to pay another group to like do a whole thing. Where it's like
I guess the man hours for that. I guess that does
like with the beauty is like the recycling. It's like once you've already kind of made Tatooine, now it's
they're just modeling. Yeah, they're just like even if they're going to a different planet or something, they can still use like mountain sort of like models and shit like that.
Well, think about that.
It's like all pieces and components, right?
All of us nerds care about the storylines so much. That like it's literally going to be the same graphics as it was in the last movie, and they just added some things and added some age or added some whatever to it, right? And so like instead of making a new set and hoping that they got it just right like it was in the other one, I guess my lighting, like now it's literally going to be that same one, but then with like a couple more houses or a couple less houses or some explosion from this thing that happened. But I don't know. That's the kind of stuff that I nerd out on. Like I love that.
That's pretty cool. Well, dude, let's jump in. We gave the listeners 15 minutes of Easter eggs
Boba
and
Fett.
Star Wars and nonsense.
Yeah, I mean that's what they're here for, right?
Exactly. Well, so the first thing I thought I'd bring up, as I've mentioned before, I've kind of gotten back on Twitter, and I knew there was like, I've heard the term design Twitter, and I mean, I know there's like people, obviously that sounds fucking stupid. A lot of people on Twitter, but there's like a huge design community on Twitter. And as you and I have also talked about before, we got really out of like using social media that much. I mean, we were some of the early, like, I think Twitter launched late 06. We were on in early 07, back when you could literally talk to anybody. Anybody that was on there would like respond to you. So there's like, I wouldn't necessarily say celebrities, but if you're a nerd, like, or in the web world or whatever, there are people in our world that we kind of consider like they're like industry famous, right? So like, Jared Spool and some of these folks that have, they're like the godfathers of like how we do shit and methodologies and all this. You could get on Twitter and be like, respond to something or say hi. And it was still such a small community, and it was only like technology and technologists and designers and developers. And so I don't know. Anyways, why was I talking about that? Anyway, so I'm back on there.
You got back.
Oh man, I just lost audio. So I got back on there, and I'm going to try to fix my audio here real quick. This is going to be really a horrible portion of the episode.
Sounds fine to me. What happened to it?
Well, I can't hear you now, and it's going to have an echo. My stupid AirPods. Let's see. It really doesn't want to work with me. We're going to have to cut this part out, I think.
Cut.
Okay, there we go. I don't know. Maybe we'll leave it. God, how annoying for listeners. But anyway, so...
The real life.
I know. Thanks, folks, for bearing with us. So there's this guy. I'm pretty sure, I need to look it up again as we're speaking, but I think his name is Joey Banks. Yeah, Joey Banks. This guy, I don't know who he is. So actually, on Twitter, he's a systems designer at Twitter, and he was previously at Figma. So obviously the guy, he's worked at some cool spots. He has some pretty good content for designers. So it's just Joey Banks. You can figure out how to spell that. But anyway, he posted this thing the other day, and obviously he tweets a lot, and I should have had it queued up to find it. But basically, the whole point of it was, he was like, I'm no longer sorry for my delayed response. And that like resonated with me because we get busy, man. And emails, they just flow like the fucking river. And, I try to go back through and I'll see something where I'm like, oh shit, that was like 5 days ago. I thought, I remember seeing it. I thought like yesterday, but that was 5 days ago. So I'll always write like, oh, sorry for the delayed response. However, blah, 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 blah. And so, that's like the go-to sort of response when it takes me more than a couple of days. And so I don't know. That kind of resonated with me because one of my philosophies, I don't know if it's a philosophy, but I just know that I hear people say sorry way more than they should. And the reason I'm aware of this is because I used to always, I said sorry all the time. And I don't know that I can't remember exactly what made me realize that that's like not necessarily good, but I do know that like that puts you in a different position. So if you and I, it's kind of like a power thing, right? And it's kind of weird. So like, if we're doing something and I say sorry, it's almost like, it puts you at an advantage because now I'm the fuck up or whatever. Now I'm making it like a little bit more extreme, but enough of those. And it does, like, even if it's subconsciously, again, this isn't scientific fact here. I think it is pretty well known though, but it starts to subconsciously put you in that position that like, oh yeah, Steve, he has to, he's always sorry because he's always fucking something up. When in reality, it's not necessarily like you fucking got back to an email a day late because you're fucking busy working or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And so I hadn't really put my apology or my, apologies for the delayed response. That was kind of me being like cordial, but I think that's why people say sorry all the time too. So I had kind of disconnected that from the whole like, saying sorry, because I'm very adamant when I hear, because I do a lot of coaching, and sometimes, when people early on are writing emails to executives, they want you to just read their email or whatever. And so I would see that all the time, and I would just be like, you know, whether it was like a designer or we had like sales guys or, you know, even some like relatively mid-level people, it's just like this normal thing where people like, oh, sorry, we're not going to be able to do that. I'm like, don't say sorry. And so I'm pretty much like a never say sorry advocate. Now, obviously there's those instances where like that doesn't apply. Like if you truly fuck up, but most of the time in most communication, you're not fucking up. And honestly, you know, I think the line could be a little gray there. For example, you know, if you're a developer and you said like, hey, we're going to have this shit done by Wednesday, and you don't have it done by Wednesday, you could kind of say like, oh, we messed up and didn't meet our deadline. But the reality is that you just had an estimate. You didn't know that you were going to run into some of these technical issues.
Yeah.
And that's just part of the world. So there's no reason to be sorry. So you just have to explain it in another way, like, oh, appreciate your. So the big one that people are coming back on here with, which I also appreciate, is like, thanks for your patience. I do use that a lot, but I think that's really good. Like never saying sorry. I appreciate your patience. And
That's interesting.
what do you think? How do you follow on that?
Okay, so I have two parts to this. So, well, the first one is really matter. I feel like I'm not this person at work. I am this person on a basketball court. Right, because there's all these like videos of like, you know, the different type of basketball player, and it's like the guy who just never passes the ball, or like the guy that does this, and there's another one that's like always saying sorry when they mess up, and like that's me. And it's like for me, it's like I don't know, like there's this whole rule in sports that's like if you touch it, you should catch it, right? And so it's like that's like in my brain since I was a child. So it's like if I get the ball, I should make it. And anytime I don't or I lose the ball, I'm like, my bad. It's me. That's on me. My bad. And so, but there's a whole thing exactly like what you said where it's your team hears that so much that they lose confidence in you and they don't pass you the ball.
That's a good way to put it.
Right? And so I totally agree with what you're saying. It is totally a
filler word almost.
No, it's like it's almost like you have manners. Like you're like, you know, you're trying to be like very proper.
Yeah.
You know, like I created a not great situation, so I want to make sure that everyone is happy. And so I am like, oh, I'm sorry about that because I thought that you're now upset. And so there's an assumption of like everyone's mad at me now, and that's not the case. It's like,
or everyone's disappointed.
That's what you're saying. Yeah, and I think that's what you're getting across is. No one actually, this is going to sound fucked up. It's like no one cares as much as you care about the thing.
I actually think that's a good way to put it.
You know, because it's like you're always going to have like bigger goals and this is the most important thing in the world, right? When to somebody else, they might have 50 other things going on, right?
Well,
excuse me. Sorry.
It's an interesting kind of can of worms that you kind of open there because really it's, you know, we all really like you're the only one thinking about you all the time. It's like when you go out to a party and you get a little tipsy and say some stupid shit. And then the next morning, that's all you're thinking about, partly because, you know, you're having a serotonin dump or whatever. And you're like, oh man, did I say some stupid shit? You know, even though everybody was like tipsy or whatever, literally like everybody else is literally just thinking about themselves and nobody's thinking about the dumb comment you made, you know, to an extent, I guess. But I do also think the flip side of that is like that's like a built-in sort of accountability mechanic, I think, right? Because like you do want to do your best. And if you didn't have some sort of like personal expectation, whether it's, you know, making the 3-pointer or fucking sending an email within, you know, a couple of days, like then, you know, I guess what I'm saying is like there's a part of that that's like not bad. It's not bad that you personally feel that way, you know, to a certain extent. Like you shouldn't beat yourself up over it, but like, yeah, you did want to make the 3-pointer, or yeah, I did want to like send that email the day I got it, or you know, within a more reasonable amount of time, but that just didn't happen. And the thing that I think is important, and I will preach this to everyone, is just like, now you on the basketball court. Yeah, I think it would be interesting to reduce the amount of times you say my bad or whatever. But it's a little bit different. I understand like your cordialness and playing sports where you're like, oh, my bad, homie. You know, But I think there's some similarities. But I do at least, and that we could speak on further because I haven't really ever thought about it that way. But I do for sure. I will preach all night for people in the industry, fucking to never say sorry in any way. Like, just don't put yourself there because it's just like you said, it would just put you in a different position where then you're starting to set the tone or you're starting to build the loss of confidence. And I mean, obviously, like saying sorry once isn't going to like ruin confidence. But if that's like your standard sort of every time you're communicating, you're like, oh, sorry, I meant to. That means that you're sorry you weren't able to achieve what you wanted to achieve. And if you constantly can't ever achieve what you want to achieve, then yeah, you put it in a really good way. Like it starts to, even if it's subconscious, like break down confidence.
I mean, I have nothing to add to that. You said
Done
that perfectly. Yeah, that was a beautiful clip you just made there, buddy.
Well, hopefully that sounds good at the beginning of this episode. Well, then we'll jump then. So, how I've been kind of, you and I don't use the tools. I guess you do still. You still get your hands dirty somewhat regularly.
One second. One, I'm going to die. Two, there's another piece to your sorry thing that I feel like I want to add, and it's like not the same, but it's like in the same vein, because it's just happened to me of like people like assuming that like they wrote you an email and like you haven't gotten back to them and you're like, oh, I'm not gonna ever write them. I gotta wait for them. Where like this just happened and I had to tell buddy, was just like, dude, I get crazy busy. Like I'm working multiple jobs. I got like my kids, I got my wife, we have a spa, we have like, this podcast. Like there's so much happening in my life that I get that message. I instantly go, oh yeah, gotta hit them back up. And then 8 billion things happen. And so you would be doing me a favor if you just text me again or email me again or call me again.
Yeah.
Like I need your help. Like I am asking you, please do it. Like you're not bothering me. I'm not ignoring you. I don't hate you. Like,
That's a whole nother funny piece of it, which, even when people like, I think that happens more with like, well, maybe you just said text. It's more, I think people have that feeling more with text than they do email. It's like, I just texted you and you texted me back a week later but yeah, you're right. Like there's that part of it that's like, does this person value my time? And it is a funny thing because like I do value, there's so many texts that come through and there's family, there's work, there's friends, there's everything. And, yeah, I think you just have to not worry about it. Oh, I guess one of the things I was going to say, this may be like the more dick version of that, but like that happens to me enough. I mean, you've seen my text messages, and made fun of me, but, I guess, if it's important enough, and I guess this, in my opinion, should be like the conventional thinking, but I don't know that it is. I doubt that it is, which is if it's important, you'll follow up again. Because here's the thing, like as we're all friends, or you have somebody that you're, a work colleague, the friend is a pretty broad term. Like you're friends with a lot of people that you don't necessarily like hang out with because you like them, you work with them. Yeah, it's a friend. But you're on a level enough where you want that respect within each other. It's not like, a telemarketer, like you're like, I don't give a fuck. However, telemarketers or people trying to market to you or that want something from you, like they will follow up like crazy. I've gotten one from somebody from LinkedIn. This is like happening right now. Literally every time they follow up, I was going to see if I could bring it up real quick. Literally every time they follow up, it adds a new response,
The entire subject line is just re.
Oh, I was going to look at it. There is 5 re's, and I haven't responded once. So they just keep responding saying, hey, I just wanted to give you one more chance or whatever they're saying. They're trying to like get me to buy some services.
Make sure you didn't miss out on this whole thing.
Yeah.
Make sure we can connect. Yeah.
And so imagine that, like we expect it from people that we don't want to hear from. And even if we're in that position, like you've had to do some sales. I mean, obviously we're not on that level where we're, not normally at least going through LinkedIn and trying to like cold call. But like if you're trying to like get somebody, like you've got a potential client, you know, this happens all the time. You have a pitch or whatever, you and the client, you know, you resonate with each other. And then just like our lives, we get busy. They get busy because they're usually like trying to like raise rounds of capital, or like they're trying to get their company fucking started. And yeah, you're an important part of that, but like you're just another one to-do item on their fucking massive list of to-dos. And so even we will follow up typically because, you know, like if you don't, you're stupid because they will forget about you. It's like, hey, hope everything's going well. Just wanted to check in. Let us know if you want to jump on another call. We're looking forward to getting this moving forward. But that only like, it's like acceptable within like the realm of like business or whatever, but it's not normal, I think. And I think it should be normalized that like, if you text me and you're like, hey dude, you know, you want to fucking do this thing or hang out or what, you know, have a question, that it's like, hey dude, fucking respond back, or like, hey dude, what did you think? You know?
I think though, why this is important, because I think we're kind of jumping to the R version of it now that like we're kind of done things in a while. I think that like when I was young and I would sign up like on job application or something like that,
Yeah.
I would be like, why haven't they written me back? Like my shit must suck. They don't want to hire me. They don't want to whatever, right? Because I didn't know when I was young that it's going to go from that application to some random HR person to some ops person to some like recruiter that's going to do this, and then maybe if I made it through all that, it would actually get to the design department.
Yeah.
Right. And I had no idea. And so I just assumed, like you were talking about earlier, it was just like, oh, I suck. I failed.
Yeah.
And like, I didn't think, well, I need to do something else. I need to follow up. I need to double check, because I didn't realize like I'm just like one piece of paper on a stack of a bunch of them.
Right. Nobody actually knows who Ray is, right? It's just a piece of paper at that point. Well,
And
I'm
so-
going to do – oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, I was going to say, I was like, the thing, though, with all that is, like, there is something to – I said this to my team the other day. I was like – and I wasn't trying to be dick, and hopefully it didn't come off that way. But I was like, everything you do is a test. I was like, I know that I didn't tell you to do that, but I expected it. And,
Interesting.
And I wanted to see what you would do. I wanted to see if you went ahead and sent it. I wanted to see if you reached out to them. I wanted to see if you did whatever. I wanted to see if you text me back, like what we're talking about, you know? Mm-hmm. And like I feel like that's kind of everything. Like we used to do that when I worked with the VCs. It's like we'd have so many startups sending us applications because we're funding them, you know, and they'd be part of our incubator, right? And like, if you only wrote us one or just filled out the application and didn't like stalk me on LinkedIn or send me a message or find me on Twitter or do like go the extra mile,
yeah,
you kind of just got passed. You could have had like the coolest product in the whole world, because that is a test to show that you are willing to go like beyond just the bare minimum to make something happen. And especially if you're building a business, you will have to do that. Like that you can't just get by with the bare minimum if you're building a business.
Yeah.
And so it's like people don't think that this is a real thing that you have to
well,
go beyond.
To that point you just made about building a business, like the additional follow-ups and all that, like that's a level of discomfort, which is why people don't do it. And if you're building a business, you got to really get ready to be uncomfortable doing things like, I think I've told you about this before, but when Anthony and I first started our company, it was the first time that I just had like bosses, and I had some really shitty ones, and then I had like a really good one. Ben talked about Sean Baugh, which is like a great boss, and everybody at that first tech company that I worked at with Ben, like all the leadership was all really cool until they like got acquired, and then the Bobs came in. But so when Anthony and I first started our company, I was having to write emails to clients, and a lot of times it's saying no or having to explain something. And I would spend a lot of time. No joke, I probably could spend an hour on an email, which sounds ridiculous, but it's like you're thinking through your wording and like how it's all going to be read. And I just remember a turning point for me was a particular email that I wrote that I'm sure I spent an hour on. And I was at your house actually. I was going to South by. I was staying at your house when you're at Round Rock, and I just remember pacing. I think you guys were probably still asleep or whatever, and I just remember being in your living room, in your kitchen area, like writing up the email. My laptop was up, and I was just kind of pacing, going like, okay, I'm about to send this. And to me, it was like this, this defines the future. Like this is like, such a big deal. And I shoot that email off after stressing, about it. And the dude emails me back with like one line. He's like, all right, sounds good. And I was like, that just clicked where I was like, I just spent 1 hour. I think that I was waiting for the guy. I didn't even have to wait. I was like, well, hopefully bing. Oh, he already emailed back. Okay. Oh, okay. Everything's fine. Like it goes back. This is all really tying together because it's like it almost ties to the like, hey, sorry for my late response or whatever. You're putting in this additional shit. God, it's getting Siri going here. But you're putting in all this additional thought and context into something that really, I think, if we just normally treated things like a normal conversation and weren't worried about everything that was like, oh, Ray's going to think about this one word that I use. Nah, Ray doesn't give a fuck. Just give him the context. Which, man, we could just keep going down the rabbit hole because that really leads me to, and I'll let you talk. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
But what that leads me to is like even writing emails, like I will also preach that your email should be like maybe a one-liner if possible. Like they don't need to be, you don't need to like I've gotten emails that are like, oh, and actually, in fact, I've gotten emails that start out with an apology for the length of the email. And I will not read those. Like I won't read it with the apology or without. If I can see that it's a whole wall of text, I mean, maybe I will depending on what's going on. But like I try to make it a habit. I just respond back and be like, hey, I need you to condense this or summarize this. I mean, because
hey, this is so long, just give me a call.
Yeah. So long, give me a call. And then what I will do so that it's captured is I will email with as a follow-up on our to-do items per our call, it's this, and this. Like 3 bullet points. I'll bullet point the shit out of some emails. Anyway,
so
I kind of took us off path there.
No, because what I was going to tell you is a story it's like part 2 of Mark Cuban that I don't think you know.
Okay.
So obviously he funded, the company, but he wanted weekly updates of what was happening.
Right.
And so I had to send these weekly updates, emails. And like, I was so stressed. I would literally write like a book. I want him to know like we're smart, it's like, this is where we are right now. This is whatever, this is what we're moving to. I had this sales call with this person, like we're trying to see if we can work a deal with this. We're trying to do a POC over here. And I'd be like, oh, this is going to be killer. He's going to be like, all right, I'm going to set you up with this, and this. And he'd write back and he would say, okay. And and then this would happen the next week and the next week. And finally, I was kind of mad. I was just like, what the fuck? This is not what I signed up for. Like, I could have went to some other VC and
anybody would just say, okay.
I wanted to work with you and you were going to help, kind of pull this together. It was like the dream I had in my head. Right.
Right.
And so, he's got his right-hand men, his generals and stuff. And so I communicate with them a lot. And so I had this call with one of them and he could tell I was just pissed off. And he's like, what's wrong? And I was like, man, I write these emails to Cuban and he's just responds with K, and and he goes, wait, you're thinking about this all wrong. He goes, can you imagine how many emails that man gets a day?
Yeah.
He took the time to respond to yours.
He took the time to give you a K.
No, but he said it in a way that I was just
not for real though. I get
it. I guess, yeah. I mean, he's like that means 2 things. That means he cares enough about you and your business to read what you wrote, to absorb it, and if things were bad, he would have wrote you something that's
bad. When you would get the real response.
He's saying if it's short and sweet and it's okay, that's good. If it's whatever, that means you're on the right path. He goes, you don't want a long email back from Mark Cuban,
dude. This goes back to our episode where we talked about, people will take the time to shit on restaurants on Yelp or
Yeah,
whatever, but
yeah,
they won't
they'll
take
get
the
bad
time to be
reviews.
like, wow. I mean, yes, sometimes people do give good responses, but the majority, it's well known in our industry that the majority of time that people take to respond and like write comments is usually because they're upset, right? So it's kind of similar, right? So if like
Totally.
he reads it and he's like, all right, that's what I needed. Cool, thanks. Or even just, okay. Versus like anything that would give him a reason to write you a long response probably wouldn't be positive.
But this took me months. I mean, like, it was the hardest pill to swallow because it was exactly what you were describing. Like, I was, like, beating myself up. Like, I was just like, man, am I not doing this right? Like, is this,
Yeah.
like, did I not say the right thing? Are we not moving fast enough? Are we not doing whatever? You know, and like,
Right, it does seem, I could totally understand that. You know, you seem kind of almost dismissive. It's like,
yeah,
he doesn't even care.
Which is just, there's no context, right? Because there's like nothing behind it, right? And so
well, and then why would you
so
ever think
glad.
about, kind of to our point, you're thinking about you. Why would you ever think about, is he doing this with 100 other companies and 100 other guys that are like doing the same thing you are? Like, yeah, he doesn't have time to fucking write a
Well, it's also
detailed
too, it's
follow-up.
like it's like he's such a big name, and you see him like on TV, and he's like throwing out all these ideas on Shark Tank with like people, you know,
Yeah.
and like you forget like that's fucking TV and it's not real
Right.
life, you know, and
Yeah,
you know,
that's an
I don't
interesting
know.
point too.
I don't know, that was like a definite like kick in the balls that ended with a smile, you know, and like. You know, it was like it hurt so bad, and then I kind of like walked away, like, man, all right, now I
Happy.
feel good. Yeah. Thank you for that kick in the balls. I appreciate it.
I think that's going to be
know.
the soundbite.
Yeah. Mark Cuban kicked me in the balls, and I liked it.
I walked away happy. Nice.
So the transition from that would be
Well, you know, I think where I was, I'd started to mention, you know, I've been using Figma, and you and I've talked about this probably, you know, too much, but so I know you still get your hands dirty a little bit. But by getting hands dirty, I mean like actually using design software and doing, you know, some mock-ups from time to time. Not as much as, you know, either of us used to, but I literally like didn't at all for probably 5 years. I mean, I would still open up stuff and, you know, try to satisfy my itch to like, you know, do a cool looking screen or whatever. But it was never like you know, I couldn't necessarily add value to an ongoing project because I had, you know, too much other shit going on. But anyway, I've been using Figma. I've been helping out this team and doing some like comps and stuff because I just wanted to, and it's been fun. We talked about that, but you know, and I know like Figma is like the hot shit, and it's been for a while, which is not news to anyone. It's just me going like I'm on board now. But what I will tell you, and it reminded me because my whole team was using Figma, is their billing model fucking sucks. Like, so I remember, you know, when we were transitioning from Sketch to Figma, like I only got it for the people that were starting to use Figma on their next project, so I may have gotten it for like, I don't know, 8 or 10 people. And so the cost of that, I'm just going to say like, you know, it was like, say $200. I don't really know the cost. The point is, I wasn't really paying attention because I wasn't personally paying. We got to the point where we had like an IT department and they would cover all the billing for the software we were using. But one day I'm like, I just need to go do some cleaning and make sure that we don't still have accounts that we're not using. And I see this screen that I go to and it's got like 100 people on it, and they're all like invited to look at projects. And I'm like, oh, okay, I guess we have a lot of clients that are invited to participate or be viewers of these projects. But then I dig in further, and it wasn't easy to get to. And then I see the fucking bill for it was like $2,000. Like that was a difference of like $1,800 that I had no awareness of. And I was the owner of the account. Like I started our Figma account. And so I send a message and I'm like, whoa, like this is, I mean, first of all, I looked back through my email and I was like, nowhere did I get any sort of notification that I was going to be billed for another person. And then I was like, okay, did I miss it when I added that or maybe I wasn't adding people. So I went through the process of like on one of my projects, on one of the client projects, like adding a person, inviting someone. Nowhere does it say, it never prompts you. And there could be somebody listening that's like, yeah, it does. But I've gone through this twice now. Nowhere does it prompt you like you are about to incur more charges for adding these people that you will receive in your next bill. So on this little project that I've been working on, I got my own personal, Figma license. It's like $9 or some shit. I just needed the basic stuff. And, but I invited like these developers and the CEO of this company, to be able to view stuff. And I got my next bill and it was like $55. I was like, what the fuck? I was like, oh yeah, I remember this. Anyway, just like first of all, for a product that's designed to build user experiences. I mean, you're designing and, we just use that term. It's like user experience designers build, they design and they design experiences, and that experience isn't just what it looks like, as we're all aware of. What a fucking shitty experience. Like, that's like the worst experience, to get like a bill that says, yeah, you owe us way more than you thought you did. Just money out of your pocket.
This is kind of possibly, I don't know, because I think they're thinking about themselves. I forget that there used to be a term for it, but it's very much, I just call it Godaddied. But I feel like there is an experience like where you're taking into account, like, you want that person to get confused and to give you more money and to sign up for more things and to do extra stuff and to just pay more up front, right?
Sure.
I say GoDaddy, like right now, when you go buy a domain name, it's like it defaults to, yes, I'd like to set up email and I want a new website.
Oh, right.
And I want, or even that, defaulting to 5 years instead of 1 year. It's like, how can I get more money out of you, as quickly as possible? And I think that's that potentially is what you were going through.
No, I hear what you're saying, and I will go through the process again and be fair. But there is only the trick might be that you sign them up as a viewer, an editor, or whatever. And I'm still unclear on that. But at least with GoDaddy, they may all be pre-selected, that's a pretty common thing to do. It's like even like the pre-selected box to like sign up to get emails.
I'm just using that as an example.
I know. But the difference is even though I know GoDaddy is like notoriously like shitty, that at least will show you, I know what you're talking about. At least shows you the additional cost it's going to cost you. And then that, in my opinion, even though that's a little sneaky, it's at least whether you actually looked and read what you were signing up for or not. It's a little bit on you too to unclick those things. I realize it's kind of a pain in the ass. It shouldn't default. But with this, just completely blind. Nothing that would give me any awareness that I'm going to pay fucking 5 times as much on my next bill for my own little personal account.
Yeah, we have a spa and we use Square, which is now Block. Now they changed their name to. Yeah. And as much as we bitch about them as a product because it's not specific enough for spas, right? They do exactly what you want. Every time we make a change and click a button, it's like it pops up and it's like, hey, just so you know, that feature costs $6 more. Are you okay with that? Like it's like it's very upfront about a bill is going to change if you make this change to the thing. Yeah. And so I don't say a lot of nice things about Square, but I would say that they totally do that really well as far as like keeping you aware of what's going on with your finances, which is
that's
should be the most important. Exactly.
Yeah, the most important piece, because you're doing this shit. Doesn't matter what you're doing. I mean, yeah, I guess you could go in and play with tools for fun, but almost all of these tools are used in a work atmosphere, business setting, or because you want to make money. You're running the spa, you're running the business because you want to make money. And so to use a tool that like unexpectedly charges you 5 times more than you expected, like, wow, God, that's fucking horrible. Anyway, I'll quit shitting on them, but I did think that since I've been like the Figma fanboy, in the past, a few episodes, I figured I needed to give them a little shit.
You gotta even them out.
Yeah.
Take them down
still sponsors Figma.
Yeah, exactly. But we still love you, and we'll take all.
Yeah, I'll help you with that problem that I just pointed out.
This is just user experience research. That's all we're doing. We're giving a data point.
Freebies.
So they can improve. Exactly.
All right. Where are we going from here?
I don't know, but this episode has the best transitions in the world. We're like, next.
Well, speaking of, you kind of put a little note about like Truebill. Did you have anything on that? Because I kind of right before we started, I mentioned how shitty the billing model was.
Thank you for being my brain for me. Well, just because it's in the same kind of vein, right? And like, but it's the opposite. You're shitting on Figma. I fucking love Truebill, right? So
I'm kind of a fan too, and I just use their free model so far. Are you paying for it?
Well, I think it's not free anymore. You have to like pay something, like, but you get to pick how much you pay. Like they
still
used to
send
be
me
$0.
I'm pretty sure I could be secretly paying for it, but they still send me like it's very basic. I don't think I'd have to look at it. I'm pretty sure I'm not paying anything though.
I got a thing that says well, the free model is gone and the minimum you still pay what you want, but the minimum is $3, and so I pay $3 a month or something like that. Yeah, it's not anything crazy, but the only reason is like, I mean, you know, it's like I feel like most marriages, the only thing that people fight about is money, right? And we're those people. I forget when I worked in like credit scores, there's a name for it. It's like the transactors or whatever. Like we live our life on a credit card and then we pay it off with like our real money like every month, and that way we get points and all that kind of shit, right?
Yeah.
And
it's the only reason I pay like $500 a year for my Amex.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. It's like, and so, you know, when you work at a job, like typically go out to lunch and you go get coffee and you go do whatever. And like my wife's always just like, well, why don't you just take your lunch? Why don't you know, like the way that everyone fights about seriously. Starbucks and stuff. And so she'd be like, look, the credit card's maxed out. And I'm like, okay, I didn't buy that much coffee. You know, it's like we had our vacation, we had all this other stuff, we put gas on it. There's like, that's why it is. And so I was like, fine, I'm going to show you. So I started using Truebill. I literally like, you know, I document like this one is a family meal. This one is my meal. This one is like my coffee. We all went for coffee. Like I break it down. And then it's like, oh, I only spent like $180 this month, not, you know, $10,000, you know? So no, I don't know. It was just like, it was like the opposite of yours. Like you were having such issues with Figma, like on the billing side. Like I feel like Truebill, like it was such like an easy, nice flow. It was cheap. It was free when I started it too. Yeah. And it's like a really nice interface. It made it so simple. I have like little quips like I would want to change, but like,
yeah.
Other than
Are you
that,
totally
like,
cool just using it only on mobile? Because I've tried to go to it a few times on desktop, and it's like, you got to do it on the mobile app. And I'm not like stressed out about it, but sometimes when I'm doing finance stuff, I'll get on my desktop and, you know, do shit.
For me, I'm the opposite. When I take a shit, I sit there on the toilet and I'm like, I'm
do
going to mark that one as this. I'm going to mark that one as this. I'm going to.
I think it should be a goal of yours to file your taxes while taking shits.
I mean, I could do that. We have an account. I could just send it to them, you know. But
oh, you have an account? Well, fuck that. It's not going to be the same. I want you to use TurboTax.
TurboTax. We have a business. Like we can't do
that's
TurboTax stuff anymore.
Yeah.
Which actually, that was a conversation. I'm curious your thoughts. We just had this conversation the other day. And like, I feel like this is another one of those things where it's like, when you're starting off, you're just like, what? This is so weird. Where it's like, you know, when you hear like the whole Trump thing, like how he's like getting $1 million back, you know, instead of like paying taxes, or Bezos, the rich man in the world, pays nothing or whatever. And I was explaining to them, like taxes is just like this game, right? And it's like these legal loopholes that are written that nobody knows about, but if you know about it, you can totally use to your advantage for everything, right? Because I was telling my designers, I was like, y'all need to like start a company. Like, it doesn't have to do anything. You just need to be able to funnel all of your expenses. And like Curtis, one of like the baddest designer on my team, he like just bought a house. I was like,
oh, nice.
All of those, like, you know, house improvements and like all that kind of stuff, like it should be funneling through something, you know, and like writing off like his home office and like all the stuff that he's bought for it and his desk.
This is cool. Like, this is like cool information, I think, for, you know, potentially people listening to this, because and we're probably both, you probably know more than I do, but one of the things I have become aware of is like creating basically an S corp. And so then you pay the S corp and you just take draws as one of the as an owner of the S corp. And so apparently that can reduce your taxes from like 40% to like less than 10%, because you're not actually, something about, maybe it has to do with like double taxing or something like that. But the fact that you're not taking a paycheck and you're just taking draws from the S corp. That's. I mean, I'm only going to touch on that because I don't know enough about it. But I think it's an interesting thing for people to look into.
This is not financial or legal advice whatsoever.
Actually, yeah,
it's a little disclaimer, but but the whole point of that is totally what do you call it? Like, it took a long time for me to learn that, and actually having an accountant explain it to me, right? To where it's like, oh, okay, I wasn't thinking about, like, it actually started that in that house in Round Rock. That's when we got our first accountant when you came to stay at South by, because we started a photo booth company then,
right?
And we started that, and they were like, okay, you drive a lot. Your car, we're going to write that off, and every single mile that you drive. So track every single mile you drive, and you're going to get $1 or something back per mile. And I was like, fuck, we're driving like 700 miles. Like, we were literally doing the whole state of Texas. We do like
$1
we do
back
7
per mile sounds pretty good.
Up to a cap, right?
Okay.
And so, but that cap is really big. And so that means, like, we weren't making like shit tons of money back in the day, you know? So it's like, that means that's the difference of you owe money versus the government's paying you back, right? And it's like not just the miles, it's the gas. Oh, we had to stop and we had to eat like on the way to each one of those trips. We had to stop and eat on the way back after. You know, we had to buy all the stuff for the photo booth, all the like toys and like little dress up things.
Right. So all that was like,
all of that is a business expense.
Document.
That yeah, it's like it sucks that you document all the things, which is why like a true bill type stuff is really nice if you can find something that you can do it so easily. But like, it's the game changer. It literally goes from, I'm so stressed out, I owe taxes. Like, I owe $15,000 or something like that in taxes, which we had done the year before.
I paid
and we're like
freaking
freaking
this past
out.
year. And it was painful.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, that's the difference. Like, we got a return last year. Like,
nice.
Which is crazy. Like, we have multiple businesses and all this kind of stuff. Like, but it's like, there was all these little things of like it used to be called the Hummer tax, and it got taken away, and then Trump brought it back, and so they're calling it the Trump tax, where it was like if any vehicle over like 6,000 pounds, it could be considered
that's why people
a
buy
commercial.
G-Wagons.
Buy a G-Wagon, buy a Hummer. My like the Tesla Model X is over 6,000 pounds, so it was considered a commercial vehicle. Like, and that means that a vehicle you typically depreciate. You can write off this like 20% and then 20% and right. But that tax item makes it to where you can write off the whole thing on year one, like 100% of it, like right there, and just get all of it back. And then wild. For me, then you trade it, and then you go get another car, and then you could do it all over again.
We need to have a guest on that like knows like intimately all these like tricks. Like, this is super valuable stuff. That I feel like
this needs to be taught in school.
Dude,
like,
I've even had. Like, I try to be pretty just honest about my ignorance in a lot of these things because I want to know. And so I've worked with some other executives where I'm like, hey, dude, like, you got any tips for like how you're like managing your wealth and you're trying to grow it? And like, you know, because we're all we're doing okay in life, and it's like, okay, great. How can I leverage what's happening now to help me, in the future? And most of the responses I got were like, man, I'm just fucking stupid. My accountant just kind of handles shit. And I'm like, God, okay. Well, then there's the going through the accountant shopping process, but we don't need to get into all that. But I do agree. Like, I wish there was some more like, just like, not just like Finance 101, but like the tips and tricks of Finance 101. Something like that.
Totally. No, I mean,
I feel like right now I would want to take the same classes that I think that like any 20-year-old starting their life should take.
Oh, 100%.
It's like the understanding of like what you just said, the Hummer tax or the Trump tax or whatever. Like, here's what that actually means, because people just look at it like, oh, these big corporations, and I get the argument on both sides, but the reality is that you as an individual, we're not these giant corporations, but we could still take advantage of some of those like loopholes and shit. We just have no fucking idea because we don't have the money to pay for fucking badass legal and accountant teams, right?
What's that? But what's that? What's his name? Ramit Sethi, like the "I will make you rich" guy. Like,
yeah. Which, by the way,
that guy,
amazing book. It's the worst title ever because it sounds like pure snake oil.
Yeah.
But I suggest I bought that for so many people. It's a really great book.
I haven't read it, but I listen to him on like every podcast that he's on,
Yeah,
and I
he's
always
good.
get something from it. Like, no, like it, but that's kind of the whole thing. It's like he's doing that, right? Like he has basically like the class that everyone should be taught in like high school or your first year of college or something, right? About not just, what to do with your money, how to make money, but like how your money can actually make more money for you, and like all the things that you need to set up, and like how to retire, and like all that kind of shit. Like everyone's just kind of like figuring it out, and most people just don't figure it out, but it's like so fucking important. But like, I mean, I feel like I'm still learning. I don't know shit. I was like, I just happened to find one decent
understatement
person
of the year for
explained it.
me.
Yeah.
Like, I still like I'm trying to figure shit out. I mean, I think an important takeaway here is probably like, start accountant shopping early, because we're not going to figure all this shit out, because things also like change every year.
Which I know that the responses were like, yeah, well, I don't have money to pay for an accountant kind of thing. But I feel like, and this is another thing that I feel like I've learned like later on in life, it's like it's smarter to be a little more poor and have certain things taken care of, because you'll actually benefit from it. Like it's worth
I think
the money.
The analogy to that is when you take a class or something, you're taking this class because it's going to give you the ability to increase your profits or whatever. It's going to give you the ability to be more valuable. I think it's really similar. Like, you pay for an accountant and you're paying for it up front, and it sucks, or it may seem like it sucks or whatever, or anytime you get billed, but it's literally somebody that their whole job is to try to like save you as much money as possible, or make sure that you're not going to unexpectedly have to pay a bunch of money.
Well, and a good accountant, their job is to educate you on what it is they're doing, so that you now know how to do it in the future, or the pieces of the puzzle.
Or at least why it's happening.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like, you don't want someone to just go take care of it for you. You want someone to educate you on what it is that they're taking care of for you. You know, because it's like, that information is fucking gold. It's crazy. And you're going to use it with every business you start and every place that you go to. And like, oh, we move somewhere else. This is a perfect place to set up this thing, because then we can put money through it this way, and then we get it all back at the end of the year. Like, it sounds like it's shady and shell companies and stuff like that, but like, we didn't write the law. It is the law. Like, you know what I mean? It's like just nobody knows the law.
Take advantage of it.
Exactly.
Or somebody else is going to. Or don't take advantage of it because you feel like it's wrong.
And then just complain about it.
Yeah, just complain about it and pay a bunch of extra money. Yeah. Okay, well, we're on an hour. Let's wrap on have you ever heard of this concept of doing like I think there's probably a term for it. I don't think this is it. But basically like transparent salaries or open salaries.
The buffer thing. Yeah.
Wait. Oh, do they do that? I guess they kind of...
They were like the first one to like be famous about it.
That's right. I do remember hearing about that. And they showed like kind of their whole company's finances and all that or whatever.
Yeah, it's like
a bunch of companies do that now, but I still don't think that the showing the individual salaries of individuals is very common. But I hear about it.
I don't think it's common at all, but I think it's... I don't know. I feel like... I don't even know if it's a popular thing. Like, I don't feel like...
Well, it's definitely popular.
Meaning like, do people want it?
Well, at my previous company, we were up to like 260, and that kept coming up. Like every town hall, people like it was anonymous, but people would bring up, "Hey, are we going to institute transparent salaries?" And so the leadership was always like, "What in the fuck? Why is this on here again?" And I always thought it was weird because I never, when I was younger, I definitely never thought of like, yeah, I just want everyone to. I remember even when it was like weird to like share it with your friends, and now I mean like now we're, the homies would be like, hey, this is what I'm making or whatever. Or even like I had a conversation with one of our buddies last night, and I think we're also open about it because I want to know your opinion. Like, we're making decent money now, but like there's such a range of what you could make for the services that you offer as an individual to any company. It's like, here's what I'm thinking. You're like, and so last night, me chatting with one of our friends, I was like, dude, you need to be, 50K over that, which is substantial, right? But that's because I've been in a position at a company where I'm hiring people that do those types of roles, and we're paying those fat salaries or whatever. and you just know like what the expectation is. And so I don't know. I guess my point is like, I think you kind of share it like at a certain point, but I've never just wanted it to be like open or whatever. I don't know how much I care, but anyway, what I actually think is like an interesting point about this is like, I don't know necessarily the reason that a lot of people are interested in that, because they have to participate as well, which means like you want to know what everybody else makes. Everybody else is going to know what you make. However, just like we were talking about with like the tax tricks, what people don't think, I think if they are hoping that they're going to get senior executive salaries, they're going to be in for a surprise. Well, they may not be in for a surprise, but they probably aren't going to see the full picture, because as a senior executive, I can always pay myself. We could set up a structure where my salary is at
$1.
We'll say, well, no, that would be too obvious. But we'll say
but that's what CEOs do for giant companies. They're like, I'm not even taking I only make $1, but I
that's
get
also
this much in equity and this.
There's
much
some
in bonuses.
perception, but that's also a big tax advantage too, right?
100%.
They just take like a draw from their equity. So, but what I could do as a senior executive, and we'll just say like I could say I could change my salary to $150,000 a year. Which isn't a lot in today's market, but what I could do is have like monthly or quarterly draws from, or bonuses or whatever, which you would never have to share. So it would like be like, okay, we're all sharing our salaries. And then some of the more senior level engineers and designers who are making like, upwards of 150 or more would be like, oh shit, like I make more than our executive team or whatever, which totally wouldn't be true.
Well, this is my issue with it, and it's going to be a total rant. It's kind of in the same vein as what you're talking about. It's like, but it annoys me that you could come in as like a lower level employee and assume that you should be making something even close to what someone who built the fucking company is making. And like the audacity that you would have that like you think that you are that valuable, like, and because you haven't put in the sweat and the equity and all the time and built all the things and done all the sales and got those first clients and made an office and made it to where like everyone is now available to have this job.
Yeah.
Like all of that isn't taken into account. It's like someone just looks at you in a meeting and goes, well, I can do what they can do. I should be making that much. It's like, it's so annoying to me. And I feel like it's so normal now where someone comes in first year, second year, and they're like, well, I want to be making, executive or lead or senior money because I'm good.
Right.
And be like, yeah, you're good and you're going to be great, but right now you're still learning, and it's, I don't know. Maybe it's the way I was raised or whatever, but I feel like it's so rude, right? Like, it's just so like, it's so just like, I don't care about anyone else. Pay me that or I'm leaving. And we're like, okay.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what's happening in the world right now. Like,
well, that's what I was going to say. A lot of that I think is largely just because of the rest of the industry. I mean, there's a part of it. So there's a part of it where I guess there's two different things you'll look for. Or more than two different things, but like there's a big company in Dallas. There's a global company, and you can go there and you can make a lot of money as a less experienced designer, or mid-level or whatever. You can make above what your salary would be anywhere else, but it's shitty. Like the work isn't like enjoyable. You probably aren't learning a lot except for like how to take commands and how like corporate bureaucracy works, but you can make a lot of money. And then I think part of that sort of starts to get into this like mindset of like this whole dog eat dog, like I got to get mine or whatever. And then there's the other version of that where somebody sees a company that's like adds value to the world and they opt to take a role that they know isn't going to get them as much money, but they're going to learn, like, especially if it's like a startup. I mean, you and I know this, intimately, and we know a lot of people that have like who have the skills to go in and make like a ton of money, like go join a company and help build that company because they like what the product is. They know they're going to learn. They're going to be on the ground floor of potentially building a company or whatever. And so you get all that learnings. So it's like a different value add that you get, right? But what I think happens is that those get kind of combined, where designers look at the landscape and they just look at like how much they could make, and don't always take into consideration the other factors, like, hey, I'm joining a small company, which is one thing. So like, yeah, these guys aren't going to have as much money. I'm going to have to still do a lot of work, but I'm going to learn a lot, versus like I'm going to go be a cog in the machine. I'm going to fill a role and I'm going to make a lot of money. And both of those have value. Like there's definitely like, I've always, when I've known people that are like, I'm considering going and joining X company, I'm like, all right, put that money away, like save it. You're not going to want to be there long, but yeah, like if that's what you want to go make a lot of money, go make that money and then figure out what you really want to do.
Well, but the thing is, typically when you go work for a small startup, there's equity involved, right? And if you work that deal out, which is important. Totally. But I mean, I'm just thinking about me. Like I feel like even when I was young, I worked at startups just for equity, not for the salary, because I knew they didn't have the money to pay me a huge salary. Right. But the reason that I would do that, and I think it's purely the fastest way to get to the money that you want to make, is like you could be making a big chunk of salary for over these many years. But if you took this much equity and took little salary, and then that company gets acquired, you just like 100x what you were going to make just making a better salary, right? So it's like a total perspective shift. It's like understanding the value of like what that could mean, but it also is like picking the right company that like you feel like that is going to happen or that could happen.
Totally, because it's a risk,
team, right? It's a stock market game, Yeah. Which is fine if you just want to be a regular 9-to-5er and you just want a better salary. But here's the other thing with that. It's like, I feel like everyone's like, oh, well, my friend works at Google and they make $300K and they're just starting. And we're like, cool. Google hires like 1,500 designers. Are you one of the 1,500 that's going to make the list? Right. Like go try. If that's what you want, go try and do it. It's not as easy as like, I'm going to go work for Google. Or I'm going to go work for Amazon.
So a good friend of ours just, got hired on at Google at like a relatively executive level position or director level. I don't really know yet. I haven't talked to him, but I've talked to mutual friends, and I heard that he had to go through 10 interviews. And I was just like, God, so not interested.
Yeah, no. I think I talked about that on here, where my worst interview ever was with Google. But yeah, no, their interview processes is crazy. But that's what I'm saying. It's just like, you're talking about months just to get it, like to maybe get the job, of work that you got to put in. But I don't know. It's one of those things. This is like it makes me mad, but I feel like I don't know how to solve it, just because it's like I just don't understand how someone is just like, hey, I know I don't know as much. I know I haven't been doing this forever. I know I can't do X, Y, and Z, but I want to get paid like I do.
Well, but did they know how much you get paid? Kind of going back to our transparent salary.
I mean, no, probably not. But it's like, that's my reason for not wanting transparent companies, is because it creates more of that, and we have that already when they don't know it.
Yeah, but is the reason they're doing that because they don't know? So if they don't know you make 150 because you started the company and you've always drawn like a lower salary, but they know that they could go over to I don't know if you remember a few years back in Dropbox, like at South by, they had some really good, I guess, moles or whatever that were like scouring the industry, because our buddies over at Fun Size, a bunch of them got invited to this exclusive dinner. And then basically they were giving all those people like sweet ass salaries, offers or whatever. And so if a designer comes in, interviews with you, and they have even heard that they can make, we'll say, 100 to start with or something, is it on them that they ask for it? You know what I mean? Like, there's a part of me where I get it. Like, you're asking for it, and I I don't mind that you're asking for it. And then I can have that conversation about, then for one, I know kind of where your head is, and I can make you an offer, somewhere in our range. And if you're going crazy, I'm going to make, and I think you're also capable. Basically what we would do is we would have a range for each level. So it's like multiple cohorts, then multiple levels per cohort. And so levels are basically like, if you're coming in brand new, it's like, do you speak well? Do you have like these characteristics that are putting you closer to like getting a promotion? Then I would raise you towards the top of that, cohort. And so then at each level, there was like a very, there was kind of a very small range at each level, but all that put together made a range. So then I would make you an offer based on where I think you like live in that salary range. Now, if you came in and you're asking for a lot more, I'd have to take that into consideration as how bad do we need somebody? Like, how good I think you are. And there were times where I would hire somebody in at the level above where they should, but I'd be very transparent about like, hey, here's the expectations. And then, with the, my executive team, I would tell them if there was any like, are you sure they're at that level? My response would be like, well, they're going to live at that salary. They're not just going to get like, that's one thing that does annoy me is the expectation of like every 6 months I get a raise. It's like, well, no, like every 6 months, like, and that's where like the thing that we all hate with like performance reviews actually adds value. If you can say like, hey, here's the things that you need to work on to get to this next level. Because typically your raises are going to be based on the promotions or the level that you're in. And then sometimes there's just a raise, a small raise because you kick ass and, maybe you're getting a small bump or whatever. But anyway.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, it is a seller's market to be, an employee right now because everyone's trying to hire.
Being a designer today is fucking incredible.
But I mean, I think you can't just show up. Like you got to deliver.
I totally agree. If you do come in and you're asking for, a fat salary, then be ready to rock. And which I think is awesome. I have, I've had a lot of people like Shara, our second episode guest. She came in and she didn't have a ton of very specific experience to making products. But she showed a lot of promise. And honestly, like, I didn't know at the time. So she accepted she came in, and I don't want to give away too much of her information, but she should have been making more when she started. But she didn't really have the portfolio or the history to get that. But we did have that conversation of where she wanted to be, and and she wanted to take that chance on us. And so, but she came in and like you said, like, you want to make money, you got to hustle. And so I guess it kind of comes down to that. Like, yes, understanding everyone wants to make as much money as possible, and that doesn't go away. But then like, you do have to make sure that you understand what the value that you can add that can get that money. And it's not always just working hard. This sounds super stupid. It's just very cliche, but it's not always working harder. It is figuring out how to work smarter. And that how you break salary caps is by figuring out how to work smarter, because then you can like add more value within the amount of effort as an individual that you can give, right? Does that sort of make sense?
Totally. But it made me think of something completely different that I remember that I heard, which was, I don't know, there's like a different, like the whole gig economy thing has like completely changed like everyone's perspective, and how like, they're like, no, it's not that people don't want to work. They just don't want to work like full time. And like, they're like, oh, I need money to go do something. Well, let me go drive some Uber real quick this weekend. I'll make a few $100. Let me go do some DoorDash real quick. I'll make a few $100 and be like, cool, I made $1,000. Let me go have a good time this week. And then I don't have to work. It's like we've kind of created like a world where it's like, you don't have to work full time to make any amount of money that you want to make. And which makes this whole conversation that we're having like extra hard. Like, so it's like someone is like having to determine, it's like, do I want to work 40 hours a week with this place, even though it's cool and it's awesome? Or would I rather work like every other week and play video games and make less money, but still pay my bills and just kind of like hang out? Which I feel like you can't. I don't know. There's like an adulting part where it's like real things happen, and you want to get married, and you want to have kids, and all that kind of stuff. To where it's like you can't keep doing that. But at a young age,
Right.
I could see the dilemma of having to make a decision between that, because the other side of it sounds kind of nice, you know, to just be like, I'm just
Totally.
gonna sleep till 1 today. I don't feel like doing anything, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I agree. Which the people that actually, like we talked about before, like there's going to be people that like take that route, and because they're hustlers, they're going to end up doing like side hustles, and they're still going to make more money. And then the people that actually just play video games all night and sleep until 1 are probably just going to end up working for somebody forever and never quite, you know, crush it.
Totally. Which is fine.
Maybe.
You do you. You do
Yeah,
you,
for
bro.
real. Hey, that's how the world runs. But all right, man. Well, dude, we're at an hour 20. Let's wrap it.
Wrap it up.
All right, everyone.
Am I doing
Click
it?
subscribe.
Oh, you're doing it.
Hit the bell.
Hell yeah.
Well, I was gonna like see if I could nail it.
I'm sorry. Do it
it's
again.
okay.
Do it again. No, do it again.
All right, everyone. See, you fucked me up. Click subscribe. Hit the bell so you're notified when our shit comes out. And if you're listening via podcast app, we can be found on all your favorite podcast platforms. Go like us or whatever your podcast platform does.
One of the comments was that like they were like, "Oh, I didn't know you guys were on YouTube. I just listened to you on Spotify."
Really?
Yeah. And so then they like went over to YouTube, and I wrote back. I was like,
cool.
"Oh, now you get to see our beautiful faces."
Yeah, we're on everything. And
on
honestly, like we, because we look at each other when we're recording this, I realize when I'm editing these that we say things where you're like, yeah, my shirt today or my collar. And I'm like, we got to get better about the context when considering the people just listening.
You didn't say, did you see my shirt today?
Pluto revolve in peace. Okay.
It's rest in peace for Pluto because he's no longer a planet.
Well, yeah, a long time ago. But I like it.
I got it in like 2006.
Yeah.
That's pretty much when I got this.
I mean, I'm a fan. Yeah.
Anyway.
I like it.
All right. Bye.
All right. Thanks for joining us, everyone. As always, I'm Stephen Ray.
Ray Hernandez.
Until next time, deuces.
Later.